Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am your moderator for the evening, Yusuf Bill. Welcome to another episode, The Corporate Critic. I am going to be your host. We're going to roll out some phenomenal information today with the wonderful, highly trained professional, Miss Reese Roberts. How you doing, Miss Reese?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Yusuf, for the beautiful introduction. So excited to be talking today about some of the cases and some of the research that we've been doing in this consumer protection space. We've been
Right.
really coming towards some good wins for our clients. So I do want to share some of that information. So I'm glad to be here having a discussion with you.
Yeah, yeah, this is exciting and it's very much needed right now, especially pertaining to the political and economic climate in the country right now.
Mhm.
Um, what you're doing, your work needs to be more visible. It's an honor for me. It's an honor and a privilege to be right here with you right now to have this discussion, so that way
Yeah.
people can be informed, they can get educated,
Yes.
they can know how to protect themselves and know how to navigate these times that we in, because we're definitely in the middle of a real shift in the country. So
Tell me about it,
anybody,
but we hurting
you
a little bit.
know what I'm saying? So anybody who is, dead set on making sure that you protecting yourself, your family, your wife, your children, building a legacy, looking to create stability, ownership, this is the space for you. And it doesn't matter what um, situations you may be tied to, there's always a solution. So that's what we hear. We here to identify the problem and focus on solutions. So let's get right off into it. I want to hold you. I'm excited. So let us know a little bit about your background. Can you share your journey into this work and why helping people navigate financial challenges became important to you?
Absolutely. I want to say that my journey with the United States government began when I was a child. I come from a generational background of federal government workers. There are several generations in my family, even to this day, that are all claim specialists or some form of federal government employee from the United States Postal Service to all kinds. I'm talking about from my grandmother all the way to my cousins, uncles, aunties. We all work for the federal government. So I started working for the Internal Revenue Service around 2009. And it was a time, of course, I was young, but my career began to develop in the identity theft space. I got trained
Mm.
professionally from the
In
United States.
2009?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. October 1st, I think. October 1st. I started October 1st, 2009. That was my date. So I'm just hitting the anniversary here since I
Mm.
started. But my
That was the
career
last
began to.
last financial the foreclosure crisis. We're gonna circle back to that. So
Yes,
I just
yes. Oh, yep. You're right. We have a
yeah,
connection there. You're right.
yeah.
When I got into training, of course, they just trained us on accounts management, claim processing. So that was really my primary job when I worked there. But I ended up I began to get trained as a subject matter expert doing identity theft research and training for my department. And so what ended up happening was we had a lot of people filing tax returns with schemes on them to defraud the United States government. They had all kinds of refund schemes that we had to research, and we had to find out what is this scheme? How do we identify it? How do we define it? And then how do we correct it? How do we make this, account remedied? How do we fix all of the fraudulent terms or fraudulent claims that people made and restore this person's account back to what it should be according to their income statements or whatever we had on our records. So my just professional training in that area is really what has bled over into my entrepreneur career today at Serv Inc. So what we did was, well, I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit before I move to that part. I After I resigned the Internal Revenue Service, I went to study on my own. I
Okay.
started thinking there's something to these corporations, okay, that are making just exorbitant amounts of money. There has to
Mhm.
be a scheme behind this. So I
Right.
started researching and learning on my own independently about securities. I started looking at what it means to be a part of the United States jurisdiction, what it means to participate in monetary policy, what it means to participate in trade, exchange, all these different terms that we use in the monetary space or finance space, but we don't really know how it applies to us in our everyday life. So,
Right.
my research sort of developed in this area. I went on to become certified as an arbitrator with FINRA. FINRA is a private sort of regulator that works very closely hand in hand with the SEC. So once I got that certification, I started thinking, okay, my business has the capacity to monitor these transactions. We want to look at high dollar amount financial schemes. And so that's where my background really became useful to my development in this career space is that, you know, there are so many ways that you can use revenue policy or revenue code. You can use Title 12, banks and banking, all kinds of things to create these sort of contractual terms that really don't match what a regulation requires. And so this is where I started to be like a on like in a rabbit hole, so to speak. And so that's basically what my background did for me, and it landed me squarely where I am today.
So so you come from a long line of women operating in the government. You said you originally from Washington D.C., right?
Yeah, I was born in Montgomery County, Maryland, and my family,
Okay,
we are dispersed between Maryland and DC in the district. So,
okay,
yeah, that's where I got my background. And I was just telling the story to my husband. I I remember going to work with my mother. They used to have Bring Your Kids to Work Day. I met
right,
Janet Yellen as a child. She was the Secretary of the Treasury back then. I was a
wow,
child. I remember sitting up under my mother's desk as a child. I even
yeah,
worked on government contracts in the sixth grade, helping my mother do data entry for the federal government on private contracts that she had won. I remember one time my mother did a claim against the government because they basically didn't give her a job. And she won her claim. My mother was cold. You understand me?
that's right, mama. That's
My mom
right.
was told, she said, oh no, my mother said there are so many people here that are just as qualified as me, or I'm just as qualified as them, and they're getting promoted and getting jobs, and I'm not. So my
Mm.
mother, she basically did like a private lawsuit doing a claim, and she won. They not only had to give her the job she was looking for, but they also had to back pay her as if they did give her the job when she was asking for it. So it's just in my blood, it's in my blood. I've never seen
That's
nothing
a
like that before
movie.
in my life.
That's a movie right there. Look, we just
I'm telling
seriously,
you, claims are in my
seriously,
blood. I know how to
yeah,
design a claim. I know how to prove it. And, I try to tell people that what we do is heavily based on receipts. And so,
right.
like, if you can understand what a claim is requiring for you to prove something, that's really where we become very powerful in
For
what we
sure.
can do as we move in our legal space. Because really, a legal claim is really just an administrative claim. I have to have a paper trail. And that's what I do. That's what my mom did. That's what my aunties, uncles, grandmothers, everybody in our family, we understand that if you make a claim, essentially you have to back it up. And that's what we do.
Ooh, wee, that's a strong way to set the tone for this episode right here,
Yes, it
y'all.
is.
we cook, let her cook. Okay, so all right, so let me go ahead and usher on into the next question, right?
Mhm.
Because it really ties in with what you just touched on. So, how do you feel like your background prepares you to speak on urgent issues such as the government shutdown and the housing instability crisis that we're looking at right now?
Oh man, I lived through a shutdown when I worked for the government, and I think I must have been considered an essential employee. We did not get furloughed, if I can remember correctly. There were only a couple of times when I was furloughed from my job, but it was because of workload. We had a light workload. So, but the government shut down today, okay, just based on my experience, I think it's going to be a little more rocky. And we're going to have a lot more claims that need to be made because the federal government having this sort of there are certain topics that are causing the shutdown. There are certain debates that are causing the shutdown where our government is sorting out what they're going to do with the money that they have allocated or appropriated for the budget. Now, we have so many issues that are going to require a budget to be allocated. And if our government on both sides, bipartisanship, if they are gridlocked in their decision making, then there's really no end in sight about when are we going to regain or recover the function of our government. But I want to say this because of course I researched and I wanted to understand what is like which agencies are no longer functioning
Okay.
because of the shutdown. You will be
Okay.
surprised what I found.
Yeah,
Not maybe
share with
not.
us because I want to know. I'm I'm clueless. Yeah,
Man,
please.
I looked and I said, now this is something that's been in my spirit because you can kind of feel it, but you don't hear many people saying the quiet thing out loud. That our federal
Right.
government is run by private corporations. Okay, so when I
Mm,
do my work, typically I'm working with federal regulators like bank regulators. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is one of them. The
right.
NCUA is one of them. The FDIC is another one. The Federal Reserve Board is another. So I went and I researched because I'm trying to start claims. I'm trying to, enter information into their system. So I Googled and I said, well, is this OCC shut down? And is the NCUA shut down? The chat said no, it's not shut down. And the reason why is because they do not receive their funding from the federal government appropriations that are being debated right now.
Right, because they're private entities. Right.
They're private entities. You want to know where the
Right.
money comes from?
Where's that?
The money that they charging us.
Mm. Ooh.
So,
Ooh.
a bank regulator, okay? I have several banks inside my system or my jurisdiction. They are sort of
Okay.
member banks, so to speak. Now, this is something you might liken to like a private members association where the members pay money and the members pay money to the regulator as a part of the member association, right? Now, the banks get the money from, you guessed it, you and me. When we make
Right.
deposits and our banks charge us fees, interest, all kinds of costs that are associated with us being account holders, that is how they pay for their sort of regulator friends.
That's how they
Because
stay in the
regulators are
system.
not necessarily opponents to the banking system that they are governing over.
Right.
So I thought it was something, well, in my mind, I consider it to be a silent tax. Of course, we get taxed for breathing at this point.
Right.
But
Right.
the way I look at it is our government is supposed to provide us with government services, things like the investigations that Serv Inc. does, for example. But if a regulator is not performing on that because they're private and they have
Mm-hmm.
contracts that really govern them more so than a regulation will, then you have a business like mine where we have to step in and say, I'm going to perform that investigation as a service to the people who hire us because the federal government may not do it. The federal
Interesting.
government may not operate on their obligation. Why? Because they're private. They're
Right.
operating off of
Right.
contracts. They're not operating off of regulations most of the time.
Right.
And that can tell
Right.
you right there, that's a very strong indicator that you're talking about a corporation. You're not talking about a public agency doing public service under public trust. It's not the case.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so this is something that we end up, like I said, this is why we have a business model.
Okay. So with the government shutdown happening right now, and you identifying making us aware as far as these entities being private entities, not really affected by the government shutdown, but a lot of us is still tied to these entities through contracts.
Mhm.
So, how do you see this impacting everyday people, especially homeowners and renters?
Oh, that's such a great question because right now, and we know the headline that you were making reference to earlier is that we're getting close to another housing crisis, like the one that happened in 2008, 2009. And
Right.
so we have this responsibility at this point for just as people that we can see it's time now for us to start understanding why this is happening. What's really
Right.
going on in the housing space so that when we go to perform our audits and our investigations, we can better understand what is the intent or what is the goal of our government in this same space as far as regulation is concerned. Because if we just had 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, however many years that was, a crisis of a very similar nature, the laws that were implemented back then should be sufficient enough for us to prevent another crisis just, in one lifetime. I mean, I look at it as though our federal government can see the problem because they're creating the problem. But how are
Right.
they going to fix the problem? So in our in our space, what we want to do is compel the correction of the problem, not to sit back and wait for it. Okay. And it's very important to understand the distinction because a lot of times we get into contracts with corporations and we think that they must know the right thing to do because they have these teams of attorneys, they have compliance specialists, they have ridiculous amounts of money to make sure that they're, fully trained and they've got the best of the best on their team for competent people. That's not the case. That is not the
Right.
case. Most of the people operating in highly paid positions in corporations, they are operating off of training and guidance that's given to them by private interest attorneys. They
Okay.
have attorneys that are carefully delivering training to them so that they can sort of fashion together these contracts in a way that you, the consumer, when you sign it, you will never know that you're a victim of a financial scheme that is sort of a deviation or a perversion of what the regulation requires. You would never
Mm.
know that unless you were an expert, highly experienced person to perform this research and identify what a financial scheme even looks like. You would just think, I'm just signing the contract. But this is one thing I would tell listeners, people who are listening to this conversation. If you were just making a purchase of something simple, I give you money, you give me what I bought. Think about it. Why would it take a packet this thick of documents just to do that? Think about it. It does not take a packet full of documents this thick several days, weeks. You have to have an attorney. You have to have,
Go.
down payment, earnest money, different types of accounts. You have to have trusts involved and,
Mhm.
what do you call it? Assignees involved and all kinds of different custodians, all these things involved just to make a purchase.
Right. Right. And then 9 times out of 10, most Americans, we under so much pressure because of the economy and trying to work our way out of poverty. And it's like we just like it's we moving with a sense of urgency. I ain't got time to read all that. I'm you know what I'm saying, just give me what I need. But within it, like you said, within that thick packet is all type of hidden clauses that's
Yes,
gonna be used to your disadvantage.
man.
And for the majority of us, we not really educated in this area, right? So we don't know how to protect ourselves. So and it's just like money, just like you got so many people in your pocket, right? And you look up, you get, this debt that went over here. You got people calling your phone asking you for money. You ain't never even talked to. You don't even know the name. Who is this?
Yeah,
So it's like it's like we get so engulfed in this whole scheme of debt, this usury system,
yeah.
and for you to speak on that, right? So could you speak to like specific financial pain points? You already speak on some, but could you elaborate on some more as far as families that are targeted by this experience, especially in these times that we're in?
Well, I think that's a great question because our research can be applied to anything having to do with anything. A claim can be made if you have a
Right.
governing document, be it guidelines, policies, contracts, regulations, statutes, it goes deep. Um, Even case law, we can administer things based on how a
Right.
previous court administered. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what I think people should really do to protect themselves and their families is they should understand what a paper trail is, how a paper trail is to be used
Mm.
because I don't care what you're trying to
That's good.
accomplish. You could be doing a credit application. You could be trying to get some kind of loan. You could be trying to get housing. You could be trying to get food stamps, Section 8. It doesn't matter. You could be trying
Right.
to handle a court with a lawsuit against you. The best thing I can tell people to do, besides hiring serving, would be to look at the laws and authorities that govern what you're trying to do. Because once you can see And sometimes there's more than one thing that you have to look at. Sometimes you'll have at least three things. In our work, a lot of times we have a basis of three things, which would be your regulations that are governing authorities, statutes, of course,
Okay.
regulations and statutes, they go hand in hand. That's your federal and your state level laws. And then you'll have a contract um, that also is included in that. So the contract, you'll have disclosures, guidelines. You have a certain amount of certain things that are given to you as disclosures, which are governing documents. You can look through those things to see what applies to your transaction, so that you're understanding how procedurally it should be processed, how procedurally your
Mm-hmm.
claim for anything. If you're defending yourself in a lawsuit, that is a claim. It's considered to be a counterclaim if you're raising a defense. Okay. It would
Right,
be a
right,
claim if you're doing a credit application because you're trying to claim credit. It would be a
right.
claim if you're applying for housing because you're trying to claim a contract. It's all a
Mm-hmm.
claim. So once you understand what does it require for my claim to be approved? Okay. If I have all of those things in my paper trail and then I get denied, well, guess what? You have something that needs to be adjudicated, meaning you have something that needs to go back and forth with you having your receipts so that you can prove that you should have been approved. Or if
Exactly.
somebody denies you, you need to show that this denial was unlawful for X, Y, and Z reasons because I've had all of the required things that would have constituted an approval. So we
Mm-hmm.
give our clients an education on these things while we're working, because this applies to all things, especially if it's government related or tied to your social security number. If it's tied to your social security number, it is
Mm-hmm.
indeed regulated. It's always
Mm.
regulated if you
Okay.
have to use your social security number to engage. So we would
Absolutely.
tell our
Absolutely.
people to research those things. If you need help, and I want to say this is a little bit connected to your last question, going to get an attorney versus an administrative investigator or an administrative claim processor is a different animal. Okay, because an attorney is more so looking at what their training requires as best practices in their industry. Most attorneys, and this is no shade to attorneys because we love to work with attorneys, but most attorneys are not experts in policy. They're not
Mm.
experts in what they are necessarily structuring for a consumer. They're looking at how can I take these regulations and create an agreement that this consumer
Mm-hmm.
can um, necessarily engage with us without us having to take liability. So an attorney is really more centered and focused on reducing liability for their client.
Yeah,
They are
negotiate.
not, yeah, they're not looking at how they can be fair to you.
Right, right,
So
right.
on the other end of the table, as a person who is there to protect yourself and your family, it's your responsibility to make sure that you can bargain. And this is the reason why we have consumer protection law, because
Mm-hmm.
under, let's say, for example, UDAP, this is the Unfair, Deceptive, and Abusive Practices Act, where it tells all of us that if you cannot bargain with any reasonable, substantial bargaining tools in a transaction, it's likely that that transaction is called an adhesion, and it's very likely that it could be unconscionable, depending on what's being bargained back and forth and the value of that thing that's being given, the value of the thing that's being taken. Okay.
Okay.
So these things can go really deep into just language. And I'm telling you, this is the work that we do every day. We're looking at just language because
Mm.
procedurally, if the language of a contract fits into the definition of an unfair practice or a deceptive practice or an abusive practice, then guess what? We're going to negate the entire thing if we can show the paper trail as it is prescribed and designed by our Congress and federal law. And this is also usually adopted in the state where the attorney general is responsible for investigating these things. The Federal Trade Commission is also responsible for investigating these things. So it's really important for people to know that if you can't go to the government for these protections, which it looks like more and more today, you can't be protected by the federal government in all cases. You're going to need to know how to protect yourself. And this is the reason why we have this business model that we have is because we know how to perform the administrative research to identify just based on language what is wrong with this transaction and where can we create a claim and where can we prove the claims that we've created.
Okay, so I want to add to that, right? Because I'm factoring in a few different things, right? So just say, for instance, I'm a government worker, right?
Mhm.
And just we gonna fast forward it, and this thing is prolonged into 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So now I'm behind on my mortgage. Now I'm getting behind on my car note, right? I'm in distress, right? Me
Mhm.
and my wife, we not seeing eye to eye because I'm not able to provide like I normally do, right?
Mhm.
And my mental health is like through the roof. My anxiety's through the roof. My kids ain't behaving. They not listening, right?
Yes.
Right. So I'm just, and even as a woman, like because we know that these things sow discord within the family unit, right? So how important is it to have a community in these times, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm thinking as far as like with the research, right? Because I don't want people to feel like they're by themselves, right? Because
Mhm.
this can be intimidating, right? If you
Mhm.
feel like you're going at this by yourself, especially under a certain amount of distress, people can't even think straight,
Yeah, you're right.
right? So how important is community and people gravitating and linking up with like-minded individuals to be able to bounce ideas and share information about around this subject?
Oh man, that's such a great question. I would say it's of extreme importance. And again, it is a callback to the fact that we have to create claims. I want to look at the word create because it's a creative process to
Mm-hmm.
design a claim on your own behalf. If you're not discussing, if you're not a part of a study group, if you're not attending webinars, networking with people, it's harder for you to come up with ideas about how you can articulate a claim if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it alone. I
Right.
just recently listened to a man on YouTube where he gave this beautiful interpretation creatively. Now, this is just something that's a child of his brain. And I
Right.
was just like, I'm using that. I'm using it. I'm using it. I'm using it. This is what he said.
Right.
Okay. You know how a debt collector is a person that collects a debt on behalf of another after the debt is created, it gets sold, and now this person is wanting, they bought it and now they're trying to collect the debt.
From
Okay.
you.
In most cases, consumer law recognizes a debt collector as a person who did not originate the loan. So if you got a loan from Bank of America and you're paying Bank of America, under consumer law, Bank of America is not considered a debt collector. Okay,
Right.
because you're paying the person that you borrowed from.
Right.
Um, this man, brilliant. He says that can be challenged under
Mm-hmm.
consumer law based on the Federal Debt Collection Practices Act
Mm-hmm.
because there's a little thing that we love to talk about, which is called securitization. That's what allows a contract or a security instrument to be sold, where your debt can be payable to anybody who buys the debt. Okay. Now, when we think of it in that way,
Crazy.
right. Now, when we think of it that way, he challenges the idea that Bank of America may not, well, he challenges the idea that Bank of America cannot be considered a debt collector if Bank of America has sold your debt. The reason why, if they securitize your debt, meaning other people have been buying into your obligations, then that means now whatever Bank of America collects from you can be seen as a collection on behalf of whoever bought it. And see,
Mm.
a lot of times Bank of America might not tell you that they done sold your debt.
Yeah, they 9 times out of 10 they not.
Yeah, they're not going to say that they sold it. They're just going to keep collecting it and forwarding the money to the person who bought it. They never tell you because they don't
Right.
want to be
Right.
categorized as a
Right.
debt collector. Why? Because consumer law
Mm.
heavily scrutinizes debt collection practices. That's why we got a whole section of law for debt collection practices. And if
And
Bank of
that goes back
America is
like
called out, say it again.
I said, and that goes back to what you was mentioning earlier about, operating as a private entity and not being affected by the government shutdown. This is some of the inner workings of how they basically exploit us to stay in existence.
That's right. And I'm telling you, there are so many different backdoors and I'll say contrivances that can be made, which is just a device that people create so that they can get away with things that are prohibited by law. And they try to disguise it.
Mm,
I see it in letters. I just had to challenge a bank the other day because the bank tells me that they say it's 120 days that we have to issue a refund for an unauthorized charge on your bank account. Can you imagine a bank telling you that if you dispute a charge from Amazon because they didn't see your package, that you got to wait 4 months for you to get your refund?
oh, that's great.
I said, where did y'all get that from? I'm telling you, I'm on the phone with a specialist. This is a compliance specialist on the phone with me telling me this. And I said,
Mm,
sir, because he kept saying the account that we were looking at was a business, basically a business account, a commercial deposit account. And I said, he was like, well, we don't have to give you a provisional credit. That's in our contract. We could look at our contract. So I said, let me see. Because like I said, I'm always wanting to look at what is your governing authority? What legal
right,
document, what law did you get that from? Because again, if I had to get this account using my social security number or my EIN number, this account is regulated. So let me
right.
see what you're talking about. I said, sir, carry me to it. Let me see. So he goes, go into
Yeah.
the internet, type this in and go to page 25. So I go to page 25 and I see it says there's no provisional credit that's owed. Now I do control find on my keyboard so I can see is there a 120-day time frame anywhere in this contract? And of course, there were no results. There is nothing mentioned in the deposit contract that I was looking at that says anything about 120 days. So I asked him, I challenged him, sir, where did you get this from? Can you tell me
Mm,
where did you get it from? Because it's not in this document. And so, of course, he goes to stuttering a little bit. What I can do is I can go to our fraud department. I can ask them where they got that 120 days from. Okay,
right, right,
call me
right,
back.
right. Please
Don't
let me
try to
know.
find it because
Yeah.
I've looked and it's not there.
Right,
So
right.
where'd you get that from? You see what I mean? And so this is the reason why I really enjoy doing the work that I do, because I think that if anybody wanted to stick it to the man and hold a corporation accountable, this is the way to do it. You don't get
For
upset, you don't
sure.
cuss them out, you don't kill the CEO, you don't do
Right,
it.
right.
What you do is you find a way to make a claim against the very obligation that they're using to make your life miserable, and you get
Hmm.
out of it. You just get
Yes,
out of it
yes,
because if I can prove that what you've done is something that will completely negate this transaction and it awards me all my money back, I don't have to worry. I don't have to fret. All I have to do is stand up for myself. All I have to do is speak
absolutely.
the truth, look, search for the truth, seek the truth, and then speak it as it is. Write it as it is. Write it
For
out,
sure.
speak it out. And I will always tell people, record your phone calls. Record
Right.
your phone calls, record your phone calls because when you transcribe them, they become a record of truth. This is what was
Okay.
said to me, and I have a paper trail. I have
Hmm.
a document that points directly to the exact words that were spoken to me. And if we were ever in open court, I have the playback available upon request. And this
Right,
is what you
right,
have to
right,
do because,
right.
and I can guarantee you, because if it was them coming against you, that's exactly what they would do.
Absolutely.
They
You
will pull
better.
up the recording and they will play it in open court. They will pull out your signature and hold it up on a sheet of paper. They'll say, "Oh, well, isn't this your signature right here?
Exhibit A.
Didn't you sign this?" Then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm
Right,
gonna do the
right.
same thing. Everything, every
So how
weapon that's formed against you, you use it to prosper.
so how does that work? So when you say like Bank of America sells your debt to another agency, right? So if you challenge that agency, like say Bank of America is not even pursuing you as like that agency that bought your debt is pursuing you and making calls and trying to get you to pay debt, and you challenge that as far as the paper trail, what you talking about? Do you have paperwork? Do you have anything with my signature on it? How does that work?
I'll tell you this, when we're talking about debt that has been pooled, this is what securitization is all about. This is where a stack of contracts are collected from a vendor. This is your lender, whoever is your servicer. They are packaging loans together based on what terms are in those contracts, and they'll sell it
Mhm.
to a pool, which is a trust entity. Okay, once the trust
Okay.
acquires these documents, okay, it's considered to be an investment vehicle. And essentially, what you can do is you can start to question that transaction where it goes
Mm,
from the person where you signed it over to now this product that's being sold on the investment space, which we call the secondary market. Now, you could come in and say, well, because they love to tell you this is none of your business because this is a secondary market. This is a underlying transaction. You have no privy to this contract, so we have no obligation to disclose anything to you. Okay. Now, what you can say is, well, what has to be disclosed to me is something that affects me, something that,
absolutely.
yeah, something that is of my concern because I have to end up paying for it out of pocket, or it may
Right.
change the terms of what I thought I was signing at the time when I signed it. So, one of the main things that most companies and corporations that are participating in these pooling agreements or servicing agreements, they usually have a very hard time trying to prove that they had a valid transfer going from one vendor, from the vendor over to the trust. That transaction is very murky in these
Right. Right.
situations
Right.
because it's fractionalized. We have where now this the value of this investment pool, it can never be traced back to you specifically because you're pooled in there with a whole bunch of other borrowers who
Hmm.
are just basically creating the value of the pool itself. So you can never say, well, well, they made this X amount of dollars off of my contract. You can't say that because the entire package is being sold as a product. So we don't know how much money is attributable to your contract alone or to your.
Right.
So what I try to tell people when I have a chance to explain this is what's happening is those pools, those trusts, they're buying a stream of income from you.
Hmm.
That your payments are a stream of income that is considered a product. And when they
Ooh.
purchase that product, which is your stream of income, it goes basically you're like a pass through. The money that you going out and you working, you lifting, you typing, you doing surgery, you doing whatever it is.
Breaking your
That,
back.
yes, you're doing
Yeah.
the labor and they're just purchasing the money that you're making.
Just
They're
siphoning.
buying your money from you at a rate. It's an exchange rate.
Mm.
So when your obligations, your financial obligations are solidified or memorialized in this obligation on paper, now it becomes a product. They package it up all nice and they put a little Tiffany bow on top of it and they sell it on this market where it goes for ridiculous amounts of profit because let's just say for example, when they get it from their vendor and it comes in a package, this is the wholesale. When it gets to the
Right.
secondary market, it becomes retail. It's a markup. They
Mm.
they buy it at a discount, they sell it at a markup.
Ooh.
This is what the trade is all about. They're buying
Ooh.
your income at a discount because it's an
Mm.
internal corporate system. The monetary policy
They
is
buying
led by
wholesale.
private, right? It's private interest. You will never be able to come out on top of these things if you're just a consumer debtor borrowing. You'll never be able
Ooh.
to overcome that.
Wow. 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 That is mind-boggling.
It
That's
really
so
is.
parasitic.
Yeah, exactly.
That is ooh, wow. Wow.
It really is. I mean,
So
so I would say to people is if you want to challenge that, I would challenge who owns this? Who owns it? How did
right.
they acquire it? Can they show me any proof that they acquired it? How did they acquire it?
Okay.
Get familiar with transfer
Yeah.
of assignment, transfers of obligations. Get familiar with it. Because if you don't
Transportation.
know it like the
Okay.
back of your hand, that's where they're getting you. It's because they're going to
That's where
make you
that,
believe that they own your obligation. And if they
right.
can't prove that they own your obligation, then you don't have one. Not
Absolutely.
them. And so one of
Absolutely.
the key phrases I like to say in this space is I like to say, listen, I make because they love to tell you, oh, well, you signed off on this obligation. You promised to pay. This is your obligation. I'll say, yes, I have an obligation to somebody. But if you can't prove it, I
Yeah.
don't have an obligation to you.
Right. Right. Right.
Whoever is
Right.
claiming that I have this obligation, they better come to me with some paperwork
Mm-hmm.
before I pay
Mm-hmm.
you a single red cent. Because
Yes. Yes.
the way they have the system set up, anybody can own it.
Right. Anybody will be in your pocket.
Anybody can own it.
don't
So
even
if you
know these.
can't show me something that shows me specifically that I own you and that
Right,
I
right,
owe
right,
you, then
right,
I'm sorry.
right.
I'm gonna fight because we can. That's like
That's it.
robbery. I don't owe you
It
nothing.
is.
So why are you debiting my account?
That's it. That's it. That's all it
Yes, we
is.
get ready to fight.
Yeah,
You better duck
yeah,
if you buck.
yeah. All right. So, how is Serve Associates stepping up to provide relief in these times of uncertainty?
I love that question. So we're doing a number of things, and we're focusing on high dollar loans. We're doing a call to action, and we're going to be launching it very soon, where we're doing a national inquiry into mortgage loans. The national
Okay.
inquiry is just a simple call for borrowers, whether they are in good standing on their mortgage or not. We are calling for everybody. If you have a mortgage, we want you to ask the question.
Okay.
Be unashamed to ask the question to your mortgage servicer. Do you have proof that I owe you this obligation? I don't care if you've been paying them
Mhm.
for 10 years. I don't care if you're all the way caught up. If you got it paid up, I don't care. We have a sample inquiry letter that we will give you, but you can pull it straight out of RESPA. RESPA is the Real Estate Settlement Practices Act. The document that you're going to be sending to your servicer is called a qualified written request. Many consumers are aware of this, many of them are not. But regardless, we want you to ask for custodial documents. This is going to a record of custodial ownership or custodial possession. This is going to tell you who was in possession of your mortgage note and do they have the right to enforce based on their possession of your note? There are several laws that require them to either show that they have the custodial possession or that if they have lost it or destroyed it, that they have memorialized that with some sort of an affidavit or some document. It's usually called a lost note affidavit. So we want you to use the template that we have on our website. If you go to the education hub, which is at the bottom footer section of our, or the footer menu of our website, what you can do is you can download, there's a consumer guide. It's for $49 today. We're going to discount it to $27 to make it extremely affordable for you to get access to the entire guide, which will help you understand misrepresentations, okay, that are occurring in everyday consumer transactions. And then it will also give you the sample letter if you have a mortgage. You can use this letter for other things. The wording in the letter is for a qualified written request on a mortgage, but the language is applicable to any loan that has been pooled. Okay, if it has been pulled and packaged up into a product and sold securitized to a on the secondary market, the language is applicable. So for the $27, you can download this packet. You'll get the sample letter, and we want you to send it directly to the servicer that is collecting on your loan. The reason we want you to do that is because the response that you get to that letter will start the paper trail that you need to prove that you no longer have an obligation or that you never did have an obligation to the one that's attempting to collect against you. Okay. This,
Okay.
yeah. And so this is really important because you'll need to continue your adjudication, which means your inquiry, your investigation. You can investigate it yourself. All you need to remember is that when you receive a response, that it is officially on the record. As a part of your paper trail, any response you get from a corporation is on the record and it can be used in court because it is an official response from their office. It's on their letterhead by one of their representatives. Okay. A representative is a legal agent of the entity that you're engaging with. So every statement that they
Right.
make is binding on that corporation, unless expressly, unless they express that it's not legally binding. So
Mhm.
we want to investigate the response that we get. I had a
Okay.
response recently, like I said, a bank put it in a letter. They're saying, oh, we can't do this because of 120 days. Well, guess what I did? I went to look because they put that on the record saying that I had to wait 120 days. But if I go and I investigate that further and I look at where'd you get that 120 days from, guess what? Now I have another letter that I can generate for the record. And I can
Mhm.
send them that because when I tell them, hey, listen, I can't find the 120-day provision that you just gave me. Where is it? The response that they give me to that is now on the record. So you want to build this out piece by piece, document by document, letter by letter. Because what we do is we're looking at the letter of the law, and we're also looking at what they call the four corners of a contract, meaning within the four corners of this sheet of paper, this is what
Mhm.
governs. And this is what we refer to first when we're talking about what is binding here. So if you can't see that 120 days nowhere within the four corners of this or nowhere in the language of the provision of law, guess what? That corporation made it up. And even if they have a policy that says the 120 days is applicable, guess what? The policy cannot circumvent the law. The policy
Mhm.
cannot
Mhm.
override the
Mhm.
law. So if
Mhm.
they, even
Mhm.
if you agreed to it, even if you signed it, okay, even if you were fully
Mhm.
consciously signing it, okay, it still does not circumvent the law. So you can challenge on that. And you can just let them know, hey, listen, the law says that this is my right. Your contract can't remove me from my rights. It's
Right.
called inalienable or inalienable rights. I can't be removed from it, even if I agree to be removed from it. What happens is you start to contest these things, and now you become reattached to the rights that the contract attempted to remove you from. And now you
Right.
have a much better position for you to go and say, I want my money back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if I wanted to go ahead and get the form now, where do I go at?
You go to servincorporated.com. That's SERV, the entire word incorporated.com. And then you just scroll to the bottom of the page. You'll see Education Hub, and there's a link. It'll give you everything you need to make your purchase. I'll try to go ahead and get it discounted so that we can get it to
Mhm.
you for $27 instead of $49 because we're very intentional about making sure that every borrower in a mortgage loan or any other pooled loan that you have the help. At least you can get started. If you cannot finish the adjudication on your own, we are very affordable. We charge an administrative fee whenever we get started on your case. If you bring us documents where you've already inquired, you bring us documents where you've been denied, ignored, we will start your case. The administrative fee is an upfront fee, but once we get started, we're looking to recover all of the payments that you made on any debt or obligation where we find these procedural defects. Most of the time, we find the procedural defects because these are standardized transactions. The transaction is structured a certain way across the entire industry. So if one borrower, especially in your state jurisdiction, is seeing one issue where we can find a procedural defect, more than likely that same defect will be in your contract. And so we will be looking to establish that case specifically for you because, every case is different. There are always going to be certain caveats that we have to address. But what we end up doing is we go and we file a claim for your bank to refund you if you've been paying using a debit card, if you're paying your mortgage using a check, a debit card, any type of ACH or EFT. We can get those payments back for you if we can show that these were deceptive terms being used to
Mhm.
get your signature on that loan contract. So
Right.
whenever that
Right.
information is solidified on the record, paper trail, then we have enough grounds to go in through our investigation independently from the government or independently from any regulator to make the claim for you. There are many times where a
Mhm.
regulator will not intercede on your behalf. They will tell you that you don't
Mhm.
have a private or that they don't take any action on behalf of an individual consumer. Like, for example, the CFPB. The CFPB is not going to help you. A lot of times
What
you
is the
try to,
CFP?
the CFPB, that is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The CFPB was
Okay.
born of the housing market crash.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, well, I'll say they started to enforce those laws a lot heavier when the housing market crash occurred. So there were a lot of rules and laws and things that were born of that housing crash that are still applicable today, which are meant to prevent another housing crash. But as we know, HUD is currently investigating and researching through grants, and we did apply for the grant to
Okay.
see where the affordability crisis is coming from. They're studying things like securitization. Should houses be turned into investment vehicles for investors? Because now we see corporations are buying up all the houses because they want to reserve them for rent income. Because again, they're buying your income from you.
Mhm.
So they don't want to sell you the house because if you pay for it all and you don't have, there's no more income they can buy from you. So now you can't
Right,
even buy the house because if you
right,
buy it again, there's nothing left for them to purchase from you to keep them going
right, right, right,
financially because we are the financial crutch for these investors. If we own anything, then they dry up.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. So with the government shutdown, we know that it's not going to last forever, but financial vulnerability is still ongoing after the fact. So this will be the aftermath of that, especially depending on how long it does run.
Mhm.
How do people prepare themselves so that they're not at the mercy of these kind of cycles?
Oh my goodness. That's a really loaded question because being prepared, I'll say this, and I pain sometimes being in a country where education is so it's just lacking. But I would
Mhm.
say that your study, you have to prepare yourself in the mind. We and just not to get too spiritual, too holy on you, but we are in spiritual warfare. It's of the
Absolutely.
mind. If your mind is not sharp, if you don't, like you said earlier, if you don't have a community of iron sharpening iron, you better have the provisions or the resources to be able to hire a brain
Right, right.
because this is something that is happening in the language, it's happening in the way that we speak, it's happening in the way that we understand what we read. It's
Hmm.
happening in the way we see big pictures. It's happening
Right.
in the way we articulate issues, big problems. It's happening in this mental cloud that it really should be I want to say remedying itself because group thinking is real.
Hmm.
When we go ahead and publish this podcast, every word that we've spoken today will start to create ripples in the universe. Every mind that
Absolutely.
can pick up what we're saying, they'll start to investigate and there will be illumination in dark places. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I would
So,
say prepare in your mind, illuminate yourself with data, use
right.
information, go to
Hmm.
the source. Do not
Right.
allow somebody to tell you anything. Go
Right.
look at it for yourself. Like I said, if that compliance specialist would have been able to use his title and his professional degrees and his high position at the bank to impress me, so that I just listen to whatever he said just because he's the compliance guy at the big bank and
Right.
I was not diligent enough to go and look at the visa guidelines myself,
Hmm.
but I can search and read. Well, sir, I'm sorry to tell you, those laws, whatever you just pointed to, it does not say what you just said. You're going to need to check that again and give
Right.
me
Right.
another
Right.
answer. You don't have any grounds to deny my request. And that's lit
Right.
on paper. It's undeniable. Don't let somebody come to you with an opinion. If they're not
Hmm.
coming with a fact, a verifiable fact, if they can't point you to the truth, then you don't accept it as such.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And like
Absolutely.
I said, you fortify yourself by making sure that you are a part of a network of people that are enabled and that they will
Okay.
enable you by encouraging you to support you on your journey of learning if this is what you are into. And I also just want to say real quick before we move on, um, this is not for everybody. Everybody doesn't have
Hmm.
the interest. And I always say in the world of administration where I am, it's almost like a calling to be an expert in this field where you
Right.
understand the inner workings of administration and how it's done properly and professionally. So what I would say is think about it like a plumber. Yes, you
Hmm.
could go in there and find a how-to guide on how to replace your toilet, okay? Or how to go down in your walls and fix the leak in your pipes. But if you just know that that's not for you, go ahead and call the plumber.
Right. Right. Right.
Call
Right.
call
Right.
the
Right.
plumber. Because I
Right.
mean,
Right.
you could amputate your own arm with a kitchen knife, but you
Yep.
could also go to the hospital and let the professionals do it. And so
Absolutely.
that's what I try to tell people is that if you have the means and you are able to work out payment arrangements with us or someone in the field that you trust, please try to get the resources together so that you have professional support. And don't let an online guru tell you that because they're doing webinars or that they're doing I see a lot of people in this space doing conferences.
Hmm.
They're taking you to the conference so they can buy, you could purchase tickets to the conference and they have you taking all the notes that you can take. But in real life, when it's time for you to start corresponding with these corporations, those notes better be on point because
Right,
it's
right.
specific to your circumstance. It's not a template that you can follow. It is you following your heart. It's following the knowledge that you've been able to acquire. It's you following logic. That is what's going to get you your critical thinking. Is what's going to get you to the result that you're looking for. So attend the webinars, attend the conferences, but remember that this takes practice because we're in a professional field. It's just like the
Hmm.
doctor or the plumber. They had to go to school, they had to train, they had to practice to become experts in their field. And it's no different for you. You will, in order to master this, you have to practice. You have to go at it hands on in real life to understand what's happening in the transaction. How do you rectify? How do you protect? How do you achieve the goal?
Okay, and I want to add to that, right? Because something hit me while you were saying that. As far as the time frame, right? Because
Mhm.
because data shows that this year has been more mass layoffs probably since like 2018, and Black women is at the top,
Mhm.
right? And we was having that discussion when we was on the Zoom that one time,
Mhm.
and everybody was in a frantic. And this was like what, last month? So now here it is, October, and now this is happening, right? So, and that's why I was going back to the whole family dynamic and people moving with a sense of urgency, because I know a lot of people don't even really have the time to really do the research. And just like you said, it's not even a lot of people's cup of tea. But the fact of the matter, it has to get handled,
It
right?
does.
So I was just like intuiting as far as the pooling, right? Because how they pooling our debt, like that's all a part of having and building a community, right? It's pooling because the funny thing about it is like Black people will find the money to go buy entertainment or fashion, or like if we want something that bad,
Mhm.
we'll find a way to go get it,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And I think that society has trained us like that, right? And it keeps
Mhm.
us dumbed down, right? Our
Mhm.
IQ levels is low. We acting erratic, acting like, you know what I'm saying. Just it's we got a lot of work we got to do, and I feel like it starts right here.
Mhm.
So with the community, right? I'm just seeing like this can be a form of investment, like an investment group, like when you talking about like penny stocks, and you know what I'm saying, because a lot of that money can get recirculated back into the businesses, the small businesses in our community, where we
Mhm.
can employ each other. But we gotta patch these leaks up, like all kind of leaks trying to get in here. We trying to sell a float, and you know what I'm saying, like we
My
going
God.
under. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
it's so many different moving pieces, and it's gonna take a family structure. It's gonna take a community base. So my elder always told me to get your house in order. Get your house in order,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Because and it's through the entertainment, and it's through the music, it's through the Cardi B's, and
Mhm.
and it's so all the ratchetness that keep the Black man and the Black woman at odds when we are each other's greatest allies right now. And that goes all the way across the board, because you'll never see a single mother queen
Right.
like that.
Right.
Never happen. And you'll
Exactly.
never you'll never see a president as a single father,
Right. Right.
right?
I'm glad that you said what you said about it being an investment to patch up leaks. And I want to expand that imagery in my mind that you just created because
So,
for it being an investment, let's just paint a picture here.
okay.
Think of how good it would feel if you got these people on your back, or even you just feel the pinch. You, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, it doesn't even matter if you're all the way caught up on your mortgage or not. But you
Mm-hmm.
walk up to that servicer, or you just send them a letter, a few letters, a series of letters, and all you're doing is scrutinizing what their bread and butter is. And you just, whether you hire us or you do it yourself, and you say, you know what, this looks like y'all backdated this assignment. That's illegal. This
Mm,
transaction is void.
mhm,
And you have the proof right here in your hands. This right
mhm,
here means that you no longer have to pay your mortgage and that
mhm.
nobody has the right to foreclose on your home and you're no longer making any payments.
Ooh wee,
Some people are out
ooh
here
wee.
paying thousands every month, underwater even, trying to
Mhm.
hold on to properties.
Right.
During the housing crisis, they were walking away. They took the 7 year hit to their credit score. They was like, whatever. They took the
Right.
bankruptcy.
Right.
They just gave up. I'm not gonna try
Mm,
to hold on to this property. Just went and got an apartment and walked away.
mhm,
And what I'm saying and what I'm proposing is think of how good it would feel while they sending you these red notices, these threatening letters. You call them, you're trying to get a payment arrangement. They're like, unfortunately.
mm.
I hate when they say that. Unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, unfortunately, what?
Right.
I'm
That's a polite way of saying hell no.
telling you, it's so triggering. It's a trigger for me.
Yeah, it
You know
is.
what? And
It
I
definitely.
say, this is the thing. Unfortunately, this transfer was illegal. So unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not obligated to make any more payments. Unfortunately, you haven't given me
Mm.
any proof that I owe you any money. Unfortunately, and so
Right,
what we gonna do?
right, right.
Think of
Just by
how good that
identifying.
feels, and then not only doing it for your house, but now moving on to doing it for your car. Now
Yeah,
moving
it
on to
shifts the
doing it
whole
for your student
yeah,
loans. Now moving on to
yeah,
doing it for
yeah.
that bathroom that you just installed in your house if you find that the loan was sold and now it's showing up on your credit report, or the
Mm.
furniture that you got from Rent-A-Center and it's on your credit report, the debt has been sold. Think about it. Clean up your credit
What?
report just by questioning the transaction to purchase my debt. Did you really
Hmm.
purchase my debt? Can you
Right,
show me that you purchased my debt?
right,
Just
right.
think about it. It's a simple question, but I'm telling you,
Yep,
often they
yep,
cannot answer
yep,
it.
yep, yep. Mm. That is
Patching up the
powerful.
leaks. It's just like that's what came up in my mind is the fact
Right.
that, we're almost to the point where we got to pay to breathe around this bad boy.
Yep, yep,
We got
yep.
debts coming out of everywhere. And I'll even say this, we're going to graduate into the space where we're doing this with government obligations
Sure.
because
Could you elaborate on that?
absolutely right now the government charges us money, which they call an obligation because you are a citizen. Okay. Now, we take just logical issues with a lot of those obligations because they come from implied contracts. There's a
Hmm.
difference between me expressing to you that I agree to be obligated to something versus you implying that I'm obligated to something and then me accepting that implication and then performing on the obligation just because you implied it. Take issue with that because it begins to get out of control when you think about logically the fact that a lot of government agencies are privately owned corporations.
Exactly.
So we have to investigate that further to look at, do I really owe you?
Hmm.
Do I owe you this? Is this really my obligation? If you are a federal or state government agency and I pay taxes to you to cover the service that you provide to the public, why do I owe you a fee
Hmm.
after that? Why do
Hmm.
you have application fees? Why do you have filing fees? Why do you, isn't that not coming out of my taxes?
Right, right,
You're a government agency, whether you be state or federal. Why am I still paying you? It's because these
right,
are
right.
private corporations that are earning revenue. They are for profit. They just won't tell you that.
Hmm.
Not a government agency. So we'll be investigating things that are arising from government obligations that are imposed on you through implication, not because it's an express obligation that you have agreed to. And usually, when you
Hmm.
become an adult, your agreement is required before you become obligated.
Right,
And
right.
unless you're gonna now, and this is another thing that I like to say because in our community, A lot of times people will say you're considered a minor if you're not in control of certain aspects of your transaction, namely the securities. But if you are in any other section of the transaction, you're considered competent to agree. And to me, you can't have light and dark in the same spot. You can't have a yes and a no. It's
Can't be
either
both.
yes, I am an adult and I consent to, in order to be obligated, or no, I am a minor and none of this transaction is agreed. None of this transaction
Right,
is valid because you're considering me to be a minor. So which one is it?
right,
It cannot be
right,
both inside the same transaction.
right, right.
And so this is something that we'll be investigating because, of course, we have to perfect our paper trail. If we're going to make a claim like that, we can't make it arbitrarily or frivolously. It has to be
Yeah.
made with factual background and information where this can be adjudicated, or we can find evidence in case law where this can be shown that a previous court of law with competent jurisdiction has decided in this way. So this is how we are really looking to continue to serve the people, because
Okay.
even those government debts are starting to get to be overbearing on the people.
Okay. So for those who's watching right now, who's like, look, I've been sold on this. I'm ready to move forward. Um, and where can they find you? How can they contact you? Uh, and what's the process look like as far as once they make the purchase?
So our all of our invoices are on servincorporated.com. Again, the Serv website is SERV incorporated, spell the entire word out, .com. Okay, servincorporated.com has a consumer services tab there. Consumer services will show you the services that we're offering right now. It will give you the price, and it also will give you a service description where you can read about what's included, and then you can proceed to the invoice to make a payment up front. We give a discount of $100 to whoever wants to pay the full amount up front. We do encourage that because it allows us to start your investigation and start building your paper trail as soon as we get the payment and we get your documents. Now, we are under a bit of a delay. And if any of our current clients are watching this, this does apply right now. We are developing and training a team. And so, yes, we have some extreme delays and communication issues that we're ironing out. But I want you to know that if you are an existing client or you're wanting to become a new client, you can rest assured that once we get your documents, we will go ahead and start to correspond and make inquiries so that we can start the paper trail and get those records on the record. We will ask you for a series of inform or documents that you can upload into a secure portal. Once we have those things, then you'll get tracking numbers and you'll see that we have started to inquire about whatever transaction you brought to us. Um, if you need a payment arrangement, there's an email address on the website when you go to the consumer services tab. Once you get to the place where you're about ready to make a payment, it will tell you to email us if you need a payment arrangement, or you can call us. The email is icd@servincorporated.com. ICD stands for International Compliance Division. If you email that email and let us know that you're looking for a payment arrangement, just let us know what you can afford to put down. Just know that if you're making a payment arrangement, we may or may not be able to start immediately because we have to prioritize those who have paid up front, and we have a small team right now. So as we continue to train our team and get more hands on deck, then we'll be faster to respond, and we'll be able to reduce our response times and our wait times. Also, the phone line. Sometimes we cannot answer the phone because we don't have our team fully enabled. We are still a startup business, so we're dealing with startup, business challenges. But on the phone, you leave a
Mhm.
voicemail for us, we will get back to you. Just make sure that you're giving us enough contact information and let us know briefly what you're trying to accomplish so that we can get back to you sufficiently. Okay. Once we have your payment in full, then we'll go ahead and fully start your investigation if we haven't already. But we will allow payment arrangements. I think we break it down up to 5 or 6 different payments. So we can break that down for you
Mhm.
as far as you need to. We try to keep it to a short amount of payments, somewhere between 5 and 6, but just let us know what you're dealing with so we can try to help you. One other thing I want to be clear about: As like I said earlier, we don't mind if you're in good standing with your mortgage or whatever loan you're trying to get us to address. But remember, being proactive is of the essence. Time is of the essence when you're
Mhm.
talking about administrative work. And the reason why
Right.
is because when a company starts to advance against you and they're trying to foreclose on you and they already got you in court and they already telling you to pack up your stuff, trust and believe me, it's not very much that we can do at the last minute. What
Mm.
we do usually is through the mail, what we do through email, phone calls. There is no magic wand that we're waving to get you released out of the obligation. We're putting in real work in real time to analyze, to investigate, to unpack what is happening with your transaction, and it does take time. So do your best to be proactive, especially if you can smell the trouble coming. Do not wait.
Right.
We getting ready to be in tax season in a few months. If you needed to use your tax return to come and pay for the service fully, try to do your best to set aside money each month if you need to. If you need to make a payment arrangement, do what you have to do. If you got to ask your mama, your cousin, your daddy, somebody to help you, do what you have to
Mhm.
do to be able to at least get us started on your investigation. Because the longer you wait, the less time we will have to be on your side. If they got
Right.
you already, they
Man,
got you.
sorry, sorry for you.
Yeah, now I'll
So,
tell you this, we can do recovery. Like for example, if you've already been repossessed, if you've already been dispossessed, meaning put out of your home, whether
mhm.
it's a mortgage, a foreclosure, or if it's an eviction, we can do recovery for you if you've already lost the property, where we can come in and we can say that there's money due to you, that maybe you want refunds, or maybe you want, to file some kind of complaint in the court to get your money back. We can still help you with that. But if your goal is to stay in your home, please be proactive because if you, like I said, if they're advancing quickly against you, it puts us at a disadvantage if we do not have time to do the work. All right.
Okay. Yes, yes, I appreciate that so much. Um, do you could you let them know as far as your social media handles where to find you at?
Yes, absolutely. We are at serv.soar.atl. Serv.soar.atl, soaring like a bird flying through the sky. SOAR. .atl.
Right.
That's on most of our social media. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually the corporate critic. You'll see our logo. The
Okay.
corporate critic on LinkedIn. There's a newsletter there, which I do advise you to read because I kind of be laying stuff down in that newsletter. I
For
give you
sure.
things
Sure.
that you can use to create your paper trail, things that you can use to design claims. So the corporate critic on
Okay.
LinkedIn is a place where you need to subscribe. Um, and then we are on Facebook. Serve.soar.atl will bring us up. Serve Associates
Mhm.
Incorporated is the name of our business if you want to research our business registration just to make sure we're real. We are registered in
Mhm.
Georgia, but we do have our clients are all over the United States. We work virtually, so people bring us stuff from all over the United States. I would say, what other? We have a Discord channel that is inactive right now. I'm thinking about reviving it. But that's just for study people. People like to be on Discord so that they can study and ask questions. I try to tend to that as much as possible, but most of the people in there help each other. There are a lot of
Okay.
well-studied, well-learned people out here that are looking to do some pretty advanced administrative work. So if you could get into the Discord community, I want to say it's the corporate critic. I have to check that. Let me check real quick. I think it is the corporate critic. But if you want to get on Discord just for study purposes, that is going to be available to you so that you can sharpen your skills and just become more, oh, it's not on my phone. I'm sorry. It should be somewhere on our website. If you feel like clicking through, the Discord community should be on there somewhere. Um,
Okay.
but like I said, it's inactive anyway, so we'll come back. We'll revisit that in our next episode. I'll have it.
Cool.
If we choose to revive it, we'll bring it back. But right now, we just are active on the Instagram page, the Facebook page, LinkedIn.
Okay. Cool. Cool. I appreciate your time. Um, this was very informative. It was a phenomenal episode. I
Mhm.
learned so much. I'm glad. I'm honored. Like I said from the beginning, this is definitely most needed in the community right now.
Mhm.
This information, and then there's an obligation on my end to make sure to add value that we keep this content going.
Right.
Try to make it as visible as possible, and people are getting fed the right information so that way they know how to navigate accordingly. So we're gonna wrap this up. Is there any final words you would like to say before we go ahead and wrap up?
Well, I'm just going to say, be proactive, you guys. We live in uncertain times, and right now, these corporations are really hurting. And if we ever wanted to make a change, right now is the time. Because if you know anything about the spirit world, when you see things crashing and you see things being destroyed and you see chaos all around you, there you see an opportunity. That is
Right.
where you see an opportunity to rebuild something completely new and unfamiliar to what your normal
Ooh,
has been. So
you
I would
better,
say to think
better
about
speak
that.
on
Think about
it.
there's chaos. There's chaos
That's
all around us, and we see the tower moment happening. The tower is falling.
mhm,
We've built
right.
so it's so high to the sky, and now what we're seeing is it
Mhm,
coming to a crumbling rubble, crumbling ruins. And so there we have
mhm,
the perfect ability for us to say, I'm going to, number one, I'm going to assist in the tearing down of this thing that
right.
we built that we no longer like and it no longer serves us. And I'm going
Right.
to mobilize myself mentally so that I can start
Right.
to build something and manifest something that's more suitable for the quality of life, for the vision, for the dream that I want to see in my
Right.
everyday waking reality. And so I would say this is a start to do
Right.
that because these corporations don't care. And we see that every single day. They
Yeah,
don't
absolutely.
care. And so you have to
Absolutely.
care about yourself. You have to care about your own family because if you go to them looking for a way out, trust me, it's not going to be just handed over to you easily. You have to fight for it. And so that's what we want to do
Yeah.
at Serve Inc. We want to help you fight and we want to help you make your case and we want to take some of that pressure off of you because for you to try to learn all of this, to do it yourself, it's just another burden. It's just
Right. Right.
another weight on your shoulders, and you don't have to go through
Mhm,
that if you can just transact with us and allow us to
right.
be of assistance. We can do it in a way that you can learn some things, but you don't have to feel the pressure of that learning process because there is a steep learning curve where you would need to sort of put yourself through like several college courses to get yourself to the
Mhm.
point of what we're going to be doing for you if you choose to transact with us.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
But we
So yeah,
appreciate
know what?
everybody listening. And we just hope
Absolutely.
that you guys will engage with the videos that you see. We'll probably have these videos cut up all over the internet. So we'll be looking forward
Yeah, we're
to
gonna
it
break
moving
it
forward.
down. We're gonna
Yep.
break it down, send it out, so that way keep the
Yes.
content flowing. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the next episode. Y'all go follow her on LinkedIn, social media. Make sure y'all tap in with Serv. Get informed, and we're gonna wrap this up. Peace
All
and
right.
blessings.
All right. Peace and
All
blessings,
right.
everybody.